So what you're looking at here, and this is Baruch Fleischman and the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. This is Jewish astrology as brought to us by, really somebody should be famous, but this is like a very hidden piece. This is the chart of what is called of Adam Rishon, of the first man. In it, there are 5 levels. And you might take some moment just here just to freeze this frame and take a look at the 5 levels, but we've talked about them before. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come up away from this chart that we understand what he's talking about. I'm going to go over to the conclusion of this piece that he's been talking about, the flags, the combinations of the number 12, things like that. And we'll read the words of Reb YAAKOV KRONENBERG, what he has to say here. So he says that like this. During the last few chapters, we have been working on other groups of things which are divided into 12. For how do we get to those other groups? Because we have learned that each of these permutations of God's name, and we saw that that's part of the chart that we showed at the beginning, is that the name of God can be permuted. In other words, it could be recombined into 12 combinations. Name is connected to one of the 12 months of the year, and said each one of those combinations, and this enforced like this, is that we had said previously, that the letters themselves are holders of the light, of a light that is panimi to them, that is behind them, and it shines through them and becomes refracted through them and limited through them. But the forms of each is very important. So the basic form is Yud, followed by the letter K, by the letter Vav, by the letter K, those 4 letters. But there are 12 combinations you could make of them, and that's a difference in where the seasons and everything about our lives. So he says, connected to one of those 12 months of the year, each month of the year has a different permutation of the main name of God, which contains the letter Yud, K, and Vav, and then there's a final Hey. This is how it's spelled. And then you take these 4 letters and you permute them 12 different ways. There's 12 ways to make this, make combinations there. And each of these permutations rules over a different month and determines what is going to happen during that specific month. Now, he actually explains it better than I can, so I'll try to stay with him as much as I can. And so we talked about that. And then we got off from that into the topic of the 12 tribes of Israel. And this topic took us into other topics and subjects which are divided into 12 as well. For example, the flags. But actually before that, we also studied the 12 simple letters in the Hebrew alphabet. And we learned there are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, but they have 3 divisions. Now this is a little bit over my head, but I do the best I can with it. The letters of the Hebrew alphabet are divided into 3 groups. 3 letters are called elementals. There are 3 letters that are called by this name elementals, and we're talking about now the Sefer Yetzirah, where the oldest Kabbalistic work in the world is approximately 4,000 years old, handed down by Avram Avinu. These letters are called elementals, and they are connected with the elements which are mentioned in Sefer Yetzirah. Because he says in Sefer Yetzirah only 3 elements are mentioned, which are fire, water, and air. Doesn't mention earth, apparently. And then there are several letters which are called Bagad Kafra. These are making a review here now. And those are these are actually Hebrew letters, can be translated to Hebrew letters, and they are the letters of Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Pei, and Resh, and Tav. These 7 letters are called doubles. Why? Because they pronounce either in a hard way or in a soft way. They have different pronunciations. For example, the letter Bet could be also Vet, with a V. And then there are 12 simple letters, which pronounce only one way, so to speak. And these letters are connected with the 12 tribes of Israel, with the 12 months of the year, and with the 12 constellations in the zodiac. And so we came to Sefer Yetzirah. Sefer HaYetzirah. Let me just get a little bit better focus if I can. But Sefer HaYetzirah, in order to learn the chapter which discusses these 12 letters which we have mentioned, and how they are connected with the months of the year, with the constellations of the zodiac, and with the 12 tribes of Israel. So tonight, I'd like to carry on with this text in Sefer Yetzirah. Now, understand what we're reading and going back as a series of lectures that were given by Rabbi YAAKOV KRONENBERG some time back. I don't know when. I guess he's on the internet. You can find him. They're still there. So he says, because last week we took off and had a break from Sefer Yetzirah and studied the piece from the Rabbeinu Bachai about the flags associated with the tribes of Israel, because each of the tribes of Israel had its own flag. What is the meaning of that exactly? So again, we always want to get more and more information as we can on the different tribes of Israel and what the relationship is to the zodiac and the constellations, and how we can learn about the zodiac from the tribes, and how we can learn about the tribes from what really goes on in the Torah. So tonight, he says, this is a nighttime lecture, I would like to start with one of the major commentaries to the chapter we are studying in Sefer Yetzirah. And indeed, this is one of the most the major commentaries of the whole Sefer Yetzirah. And this commentary was written by who? By the Gaon of Vilna. So I always say when I read the Gaon of Vilna, I says, I really admire the Gaon of Vilna. The Gaon of Vilna is the ultimate word, so to speak, in halacha to a lot of people in yeshivas, but it's very, very pithy. There's very little. He doesn't say very much. He just points you in the right direction, so to speak. I think I could be able to say, you'd be said, yeah. But over here, when it comes to Kabbalah, the Gaon of Vilna is very, very prolific. Who was a great genius, and everybody in the Jewish religious world has heard about him. But unfortunately, not so many secular scholars heard about him. Not so many people that outside of the Jewish world know about the Gra. And they did hear about him, and if they did hear about him, they probably have not read anything written by him. So why are we here? Well, excuse me, I read it wrong. So while we are here, why don't we bring down some of the Gaon's teachings? We shall quote some of his writings on this chapter, and we might bring some of the other commentaries too, in order to, and try to add more to our information about what we have been learning so far. So I am not going to literally translate what the Gaon of Vilna says here, by word, but I will give the main ideas of what he says using some commentaries on his writings. Now, like I said, I think I said before that I learned with Yaakov KRONENBERG, this man is not a rabbi, for a few years, and a really nice person. You would see the depth of his scholarship of what he's able to do by what's coming up now. So he says, so let me start now. And first of all, I would like to read the first Mishnah, because the Gaon of Vilna is going to talk about the first Mishnah of the 5th chapter. So this is what the Mishnah says. He's going to quote this. There are 12 simple letters, and these letters are the following: the He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Lamed, Nun, and Samach. He says, Samach, Ayin, Tzadi, and Kof. These are the 12 simple letters, and their manifestations are according to the following order. So I'm not sure exactly how this works, but I'll read it, and we'll see if we can understand it. There is speech, thinking, walking, which includes motion, just moving, seeing, hearing, action, intercourse, smell, sleep, anger, eating, and laughter. These are the 12 senses of the body or the soul, and each is going to be connected with one of these letters, and each one is connected with a different month too. So how does this work? So now we are going to read a little bit of what the Gaon of Vilna says, and he says like this: these 12 simple letters are called simple. Why are they called simple? Because they don't have a hard and a soft sound, so they're just what they are. Because as we have said before, the elemental levels, which are called Bagad Kafrat, each one of them has a hard and a soft sound. Like the letter Bet, for example, which can be pronounced Bet, or it can, which is a hard sound. It can also be pronounced Vet, which is a soft sound. And the letter Gimel can be pronounced that way, or it can also be pronounced like the name of the letter, the Latin letter J, which is like a J. Is pronounced in English. In other words, a hard Gimel is the way the letter G is usually pronounced, and a soft gimel is the way the name of the letter G is pronounced in English. So now the Gaon of Vilna is going to ask a question, because even the letters Aleph, Mem, and Shin are also simple letters, actually, because they don't have soft and hard sounds for each other. So how come we have only 12 simple letters and those 3 letters are not included? In reality, there should be 15 simple letters, but he says, so why are there only 12? That's the Vilna's question, the Vilna Gaon's question, considered as such. But in any case, these 3 letters, the Aleph, the Mem, and the Shin, are called mothers. They have a different name for them. They're called the mother letters, because the rest of the 22 letters come out of them. So in other words, they're root letters. These 3 letters are the source of the remaining letters of the Hebrew alphabet, which are the double letters and the simple letters. Now, what he's talking about, to me, is I'm thinking about is what's the overall idea? Is that the flow of light from the Ein Sof Baruch Hu runs through letters. And specifically, if he says these are the mother letters, which I'm translating as being, say, like the root letters, is that all the rest of the letters, which once again are the receptacles which hold the light of God, they are rooted in these mothers. It starts at the mothers and then spreads into the other 22. So they all kind of came out somehow from these 3 mother letters, even these 3 letters themselves. So these 3 letters are called imachot, which in Hebrew means mothers, and they are the elementals, the fundamental, the elemental letters, the 3 elements, and they refer to water, fire, and air. Now, more touching or more putting together these ideas with these mothers would be very nice to hear. Everybody has the element of earth too, but in Sefer Yesirah, the earth is not considered as an element, but as a combination of different elements. Now he says, let me move this book a little bit. It's a big book. And if I show it to you at the end, if I remember to do that, you can buy this book. It comes also in hardcover. And these 12 simple letters are the secret of the 3 times which God's Havayan name is mentioned in the verse. God is the king, or God rules. God was the king, or God ruled. And God will be the king. God will rule forever and ever. And these 3 times stand for Keter, Chochmah, and Bina, the crown, wisdom, and understanding, which is the beginning of the perception of the light of God. And there is a Yud, a He, and a Vav in the first Havaya. There is these 3 letters in the first Havaya, a Yud, a He, and a Vav in the second Havaya, and a Yud, a He, and a Vav in the third Havaya. And the last, He, in each Havaya, is the Malchus of the kingship, which is the 4th to all of the other 3 Sephiros. It's the collector of the other 3. And then you have these additional 3 letters, which make 12 letters altogether, when they are counted together with the other 9 which were mentioned above, which we mentioned up above. So these 3 go together with the other 9, and you have now 12. In other words, the letters which represent Keter, Chochmah, and Bina, and this will explain a little bit better, are 9. And Malchus completes all of them, and thus they become 12. So now all of them will have 4 each, if these 12 letters are still divided into 3. I'm going to take a moment and review this to myself because I didn't understand it very well. So give me a second. Okay, so I'm coming back for a second reading of this idea. Let's see if I can touch it together. Up above, he had mentioned that there are 12 simple letters. So he's going to talk about 3 of these letters, which are going to be here we go, the Yud, which is spelling like this, the K, and the letter Vav, those 3 letters. So we're talking about that now, of the 12. So these 3 letters plus the other 9 makes 12. And that's what we're asking, because we're talking about what's the significance of the number 12? I mean, how'd you get into this? And so it's a limud. It's something to learn. So it says, we'll read the paragraph again. And these 12 simple letters are the secret of the 3 times God's Havaya name is mentioned in the verse. God is the king, or God rules. God was the king, or God ruled, and God will be the king, or God will rule forever and ever. Now, in the Sfardi Siddur, or the Nusach Sfard, this is part of the davening, which begins at what we call Pesukah de Zimra. And they're laid out in such a way, we say like this: when we say that God is the king, we're going to talk about a particular aspect which is called Kesser. Then when God was the king, we'll talk about Chogma, and God will be the king, we're going to talk about Bina. These are all midos of Hashem, or called Mochim, and they are what builds the world. So let's go back, and God was the king, or God ruled, and God will be the king, and God will rule forever and ever. And these 3 times stand for Kesser. So the first time it mentioned God rules is Kesser, Chachma, and Bina. It corresponds to ruled and will rule. So he translates in English, Kesser is called crown, Chachma is called wisdom, and Bina is called understanding. And there is a Yud and a K and a Vav in the first Havaya. So when we hit the name Yud K Vav K, it has these 3 letters in it: a Yud, a He, and a Vav in the second Havaya, and a Yud, a K, and a Vav in the third Havaya. And the last, so he has 3 Havayas, which makes the 9 that we're talking about. The last letter He in each Havaya is Malchus kingship. This is the 4th to all of the other spheros. And when you take the 3 basic ideas, which he said were Yud, K, and Vav, he said, and then you have these additional letters. These are the 3 base letters, which are in fact tack on to the other 9 when they are counted together with the other 9, which were mentioned above. In other words, the letters which represent Keter, Chochmah, and Bina are 9, and Malchus completes all of them, and thus they become 12. So now all of them will have 4 each, and of these 12 letters are still divided into 3. Now let's read just a little bit more, and let's see if we can find out some other ideas. So the Vilna Gaon wants to connect these 12 letters. That's what he wants to do. He wants to take the 3 letters to the 3 times in which the Havaya name of God is mentioned in that verse, which talks about God's kingship. God rules, God ruled, God will rule, which is 3 times the 4 names of God. So altogether it makes 12 letters. So here is a combination. You may have to listen to this again, but the idea is that you have this combination of 12 comes from this place. So then he says, let me see how far. We're going to stop here from this year. That was hard enough. If you like, I'll read it again. I'll do it one more time and try to do a better job. As Reb Yaakov Hillel says, if you learn it 3 times, that's enough. So he says, now, we had this 12 simple letters, which he mentioned up above, are the secret of the 3 times which God's Havaya name is mentioned in this verse. Now, the Havaya name is Yud, K, Vav, K, 4 letters. So it is these 3 times, there's this verse that goes like this: God is the king, God rules, God was the king, or God ruled, and God will be the king, or God will rule forever and ever. Now, so far, we say that these 12 simple letters divided up into 3 different times that the name Yud, K, and Vav, K is mentioned in this verse. And these 3 times stand for something else. The first time it says God rules, it refers to Kesser, which is crown, or Chochmah would be the second time that it's mentioned, which refers to the letter Ches. And Bina, so he says wisdom and understanding is called understanding. And there is a Yud, a He, and a Vav in the first Havaya, once again, that corresponds to these 3 letters which he had said up above, are really more like, the root letter. A Yud and a He and a Vav in the second Havaya, and a Yud, a He, and a Vav in the third Havaya. Now he says that the Yud, K, Vav stands for the 9 letters. And the last He, but on the other hand, each of the Havayas has 4 letters, not 3. And so there 3 times 3 is 9, and then there's a He added on to each of them. And the last He in each Havaya is the Malchus, of the kingship, which is the receptacle of all the Shefa that is coming through this bit of truth that God is, God was, and God will be. That's the basic idea there, which is the 4th to all of the 3 Sephiros, which is the 4. So now you add another letter onto Yud, K, and Vav. Each one of them now is a Yud, K, Vav, K, which is 4. So instead of 3 times 3 is 9, now you have 3 times 4 is 12. And this is a way to arrive at that letter. And then, together with the other 9, which will be mentioned above, In other words, the letters which represent Keter, Chochmah, Bina are 9, and Malchus completes all of them, and thus they become 12. So this is a way that the Gaon is telling us how letters are combined, and another way to make this number 12. Now, question is what is the significance of all of this? You put it together, there are 12 tribes, there are 12 constellations, there are 12 flags, and so on and so forth, and 12 permutations of the name YAAKOV. And so he's seeing it, he's laying it out to us, but there is a secret inside of this that's still elusive. So now all of them will have 4 each, and this really brings everything into the number 12, and these 12 letters are still divided into 3, and they're going to be divided into 3, that is 3 sets of 4. So we'll discuss this further as we go on, and this is Baruch Fleischman. You've been listening to Jewish Astrology with Rabbi YAAKOV KRONENBERG here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel.